All right, we'll go ahead and call this work session to order. The first item of business is the public hearing that will be a 6 o'clock meeting for rezoning 210 Lowwater Road from L1 light manufacturing to RTZ townhome and zero lot line residential. Ordinance number 23-1249. Deputy Director Johnson, do you want to give us the brief spiel? No, we talked about this last time, but
yes, we did. We talked about this last time. And the ordinance draft that you have, the city reporter was able to redline it so that you can see what changes were passed on first reading prior to second reading.
that's right, because the last time we had some modifications
Correct.
to the motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Don't know if you have a color map with you or not, but it's always helpful to see it.
Thank you very much.
Again, this is in our Lowwater Road area where we're seeing a lot of development happen, which is where a lot of the RTC requests for rezoning has come up.
And where would be Jason's thing going on over here? Is it on this
On
map?
Strawberry Lane.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Well, that was probably the most recent rezoning of RTC. As we talked about at the first reading, my recommendation was to allow the rezoning to happen without conditions to limit it to single family only. Although I have spoken to the developer, his intent still is to do so. But again, I think just moving forward as we look at these rezoning, as we look at these rezonings, to look at those potential uses and to allow the development of the falls in the confinements of what the zoning district already allows.
Right, the default
Yes.
for that zone. Okay, any questions for Deputy Director? We're having the public hearing on this meeting rather than the previous meeting. So that will occur at 6 o'clock.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a quick question, Tracy, about that. Are we changing the way we're formatting those in the agenda? Because, okay, I just noticed that it was a little different and that
Different discussions.
combined, yeah.
have occurred that it makes sense to just put them on.
Okay,
Yeah, because the way we have public hearings and then when we get to the item, then we ask for comment again, even though we've just had a public hearing.
Right.
It's a little funky.
yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Anything else on the rezoning? If not, then our next item of business is Hamilton County School Joint Proposed Facilities Plan Update. And I'll turn that over to our committee chairs, Vice Mayor Dalton and Commissioner Fairbanks Hardy.
Yeah, we went to the school board, but that was prior.
It was
Last week,
September 21st, yeah.
we went to the Hamilton County Commission last Wednesday morning and presented and read the resolutions as we did at the school board. And there were a few comments.
How was the reception?
I felt like
I would say it was
open.
taken. I think, I think one thing, that the chairman kind of emphasized at the end, he let the other commissioners give comments, was, just that this kind of notion that, we just need to be ready to accept hard decisions, and that, hard choices will have to be made and things like that along those lines. And so, I'm hopeful. They did say, Commissioner Sharp talked to Commissioner Highlander, I think, about their education committee. They're trying to really spin back their committees up more regularly and meet more regularly. And Commissioner Sharp talked to him, in the meeting about that, about having an education committee meeting, so that they could, as those members, discuss it more in depth. And kind of be working alongside what the school board is discussing as well.
And Lee Helton is the finance chair. So with money and the education committee for the commission.
He did, and he'd asked, I think Commissioner Helton asked for them to find out what the cost,
What they're paying to repair.
versus what the cost for demolition would be, so they can do cost comparisons. I guess they don't have that right now. So he did ask for that. And mainly because they are the funding body, they're not necessarily the body that makes the decision on the plan. So they did want to have that information. And since then, we met again with Mr. Granum and decided last week that we were going to, each of us reach out to the school board members and just engage them in conversation, see if they're interested in meeting and having conversation with us about ideas that we were talking about. Mr. Granum, do you want to, is it okay for us to talk about what we've been meeting about? We discussed having conversations with the school board members about how we as a city could be a partner to them in maintaining an elementary school in Red Bank. So if that could potentially look like us maybe helping with some funding for like demolition of the facility at White Oak, White Oak Elementary, for instance, or like building out some sidewalk infrastructure to make it safer for, students and families to travel through there. Maybe a connection to White Oak Park, since it's right across the street. One thing that I have already met with one of the school board members, and we actually went to the school site, and like the fence around the property is in complete disrepair. And so that was another thing that I mentioned, hey, we can have a conversation about the city maybe paying to repair that. Just trying to figure out how we can be have, as Commissioner Phillips is always saying, some skin in the game, right?
Mhm.
Like we do care about our schools, and even though we don't oversee them, we are invested in them and invested in our children and our students. So having those conversations with them as far as how we can be better partners to them in this conversation and moving forward.
Yeah, being proactive and really emphasizing we prefer to keep an elementary school in our city.
Right.
Well, if I may ask a question, right, and trying to think outside the box here, I'd like to see, I think it's almost imperative we keep an elementary school in our district. Now, what are we willing to do for that? All right, now, and I'm not just talking on financial things. I mean, what about property locations? Is that the only spot? Is there any other places of land that might be available that we could put the elementary school that might be, I mean, I don't want to have it in a Hail Mary pass that this is the only way that we'll agree to this, and then it gets moved out of our hands. But I'd like us to really work together with the county and the school board and the commission they set up there to try to keep a school in Red Bank. But, at what cost? Would we be willing to give where the former middle school site is? That's a pretty big cost right there. So it's going to be a conversation that needs to be had, though. Because what was the consensus on Alpine Crest? Because it sounds to me like they were saying hard decisions had to be made, et cetera. It's kind of like, well, you ain't gonna get your way.
That's mostly, I mean, that's kind of just, I think, some general rhetoric that's being stated. Like, I think probably because they know not everybody's going to be happy with whatever the plan is,
And this
right?
one's not just us,
Right,
it's
not
across
just
the
us.
county, of
You will,
course.
and
So
I-
we're being proactive enough to step up and say,
Right.
Yeah.
these are our directions.
So I think, I mean, the conversation around, I think Alpine Crest has become tied to the conversation around Rivermont, because Rivermont is in much worse condition than Alpine Crest is. And so, but I don't, I think maybe the thinking has been like, well, if they have to close Rivermont, where are they going to send those students? Because they won't really, they can't send them to Alpine Crest. They can't send them to DuPont as it is right now. They can't send them to Normal Park. So I think that's how Alpine Crest kind of got pulled into the conversation. It is also an older facility. It is in better condition currently than
But-
Rivermont, but it is an aging facility that has not been invested in,
Right.
unfortunately.
Well, and I mean, it used to be they built a school and it was like, well, if your kid has trouble walking around, well,
Yeah, figure it out.
Figure it out,
Yeah, figure
you
it
know? I
And
mean,
that's important. And I, you know,
It
I
was
was-
just a different era in time.
Yeah,
you know?
definitely.
It
And
was just-
I know that that's been a very frequently heard conversation point, is that Alpine Crest is not ADA accessible. That is true. It is not the only school in the Hamilton
Sure,
County School
sure.
District that's not ADA accessible.
Yeah,
So, I would maybe like for folks to maybe, that's just maybe one part, one
right,
factor.
Right.
And so I don't know, I think that, I think with the numbers that were presented, the mayor and Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey and I were at the October 4th community meeting that they held at Red Bank Middle
Mhm.
School. And Dr. Robertson presented some numbers at the beginning of that meeting, as far as like kind of ideal student populations that they're looking at. And that was new information that they had not presented before. And with those numbers that he presented on, and they're in a recording on YouTube on the Hamilton County Schools channel, you can't consolidate any three of the schools and not automatically be outside of that range.
Mhm.
So, I mean, the way we're kind of looking at it is the conversation really has to be about, if you're going to close these smaller schools and consolidate, it's going to have to be 2 schools here and 2 schools there.
Okay.
So
Because-
Rivermont and Alpine Crest.
Originally, it was the 4.
And then it
Hickson,
was
Rivermont,
3 of the
DuPont, and
4.
Hickson, and yeah,
Right,
yeah.
They was gonna build a mega school site there. wasn't
Yeah.
they?
it's around
But
600 students.
With any 3 of the student body populations from any of the 4 schools, you're already out of that range.
Mhm.
You're
Okay.
like you're approaching 1,000, and they said maybe like 650, I think, was like the kind of sweet spot for elementary schools. So, with those numbers having been presented to the public, I don't see how they can't actually feasibly move forward with a consolidation of 3 schools, and be within that range that they said that they're striving for. So I think that's important. I think that's an important part of the conversation.
Well, and if I may, you know, what's their footprint? I mean, how much land do they need? I mean, where can we come together, put together that kind of land inside of Red Bank?
Right.
You know, in other words, I don't want it to just be a Hail Mary pass that we got to save Alpine Crest or nothing. But also, you know, I'd like to have a few plays in our playbook, you know, so that we could have the White Oak site and that be a viable thing. I think that is the easiest for us, but how does that fit, you know?
It's really-
and then how else can we
Yeah.
put together X number of acres? Is it 5, 7, 12?
Mhm.
How big of a piece of property do they need?
White Oak is really the most financially sound because Hamilton County Department of Ed owns that property.
Right. They wouldn't have to purchase a new property in Red Bank because they already own a property in Red Bank that's vacant, and not currently being used for students. So they could demolish the school there, the facility that's there rather, and build a new facility without displacing students while they're learning. And then when it's ready to open, it's open, and then everybody comes in at one time. And it's in a neighborhood. It still has that neighborhood feel, that what we're hearing from the community over and over again is what they want to keep. Even I went to the Rivermont town hall that they did just before the October 4th meeting. And that was what we heard repeatedly. They were, you know, asking families, well, what do you want? What is ideal for you? If you can't be in this facility, what do you not want to lose? And it's really that like more community feel, the neighborhood feel. And that site definitely has that. The middle school property, while it was a school, doesn't necessarily have that same feeling. And then there's like, you know, I don't know, traffic, you know, thoughts about traffic. And the fact that there's no, unless you build in like the back corner, there's no shade on the property at all, other than those like 2 or 3 trees that are up on that front right corner.
And no opportunity for like forest kindergarten.
Right, which
Uh,
you would have at the White Oak Elementary site, which is another thing that, you know, we would be losing at Alpine Crest because they just started their forest kindergarten program. And that's very desirable. I mean, Red Bank Elementary had just started for a second grade this year because it's been so popular. So they have Forest K 1 and 2. So that could be something that we really like lean into in our community and the Red Bank community, and maybe they turn into magnet schools because of that. You know, we have these outdoor learning opportunities that, you know, are really desirable by a lot of folks. So those are all things to consider. I think when we talk about the middle school property too, what we had discussed in conversation was just that, you know, we just put out the RFP on the comprehensive plan
I know.
and small area
Yeah.
study.
Uh,
And this is something that has been promised to our
Right.
community
Well,
for
and
years and years and years.
Now, here's my problem with the whole process, okay? Hey, here's our plan. We're deciding in a couple months.
Yeah.
That's BS.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, you taking months to come up with the plan. We ought to have months as a community to come together and have a proper discussion,
Mhm.
because we only get to meet twice a month and you're all are doing your work, but we don't get informed because of
Mhm.
and it's just not enough time for us to be making decisions, because I understand they want to do this by the end of the year, correct?
That's what they've said. The timeline that Dr. Robertson has given was have all their community meetings by the end of October, like in each of the different communities that would potentially be impacted by this 1 to 7 year proposal. And then have the school board facilities committee meet in November. Then they talk about kind of recommendations. Then they come together as a full school board to vote on it, potentially by the end of December or January. It does feel very rushed.
Okay, well,
And-
okay.
and
Am I the
forced,
only
but
one
I
feeling
don't
that
get to, you know, we don't get to decide on that timeline. So, I mean, the school board members could potentially say, hey, we need more time to talk about this. We're not ready to make a decision. And,
That
you know,
that would be my my
But this
best
has been in the process
I
for years.
yeah, but they
And
come up with their plan after the years of in the process, and it's
Right,
kind of
and
like take it or leave it.
I
It
guess
seems
the
like.
rubber's meeting the road for
Okay.
the expenses, and I'll go back to the comment. Not that they're going to the middle school property, but I think it's a wonderful walkability. Sidewalks are already there. Homes are already across the street and across Dayton Boulevard. So as far as a neighborhood, I think it's a good place out of the neighborhood, and a forest school as well,
Okay.
with it being grounds and the wood, I call it woods, the forest that is already back there. So.
Right.
To Commissioner Phillips' point about it being rushed, I don't disagree that a school could potentially be one of the things on the menu of options that we could present to the public for the comprehensive plan, for the small area plan that we have for that specific parcel. But again, it just feels too rushed for
Right.
us to make that decision without having the opportunity to get the feedback of the city.
You're right, right.
and
And
so-
and what we're in the planning process, because I have no idea what's supposed to be there. I'm gonna let them. I'm gonna trust the planning, not the plan. You know what I'm saying? So the planning is where I'm kind of putting our faith into that thing that's there. But you know, if it's capped into 3 to 5 years, you know, it's like bad timing right now. I mean, we won't even have our consultant on board, and they'll be making a decision.
Right.
Right. So, I mean, it sounds like that's pretty much off the table then. You know, I'm just saying, is there any other areas in town? I'll just kind of asking, you know, from a friend, you know, that could be, you know,
We did just purchase the Hickson parcel.
right.
So
Well,
I don't know
I
if it's-
mean,
I don't think it's large enough.
well,
though.
it's 5 acres, you
Yeah.
know, so.
Probably
yeah,
not
but it's
large enough.
mostly, a lot of it's wooded.
Right.
The back and
Only
and
like an
sloped.
acre or two of it is.
I mean,
usable.
I don't know if it's been discussed. I don't know if it will be discussed. I don't know what that would look like on that site, but you know, there is the Alpine Crest Elementary site. If they just demolished the building and then just built a new building, on site, you know, again, they already own the property.
How much acreage are we sitting on at City Hall and right here?
Oh, right here. in
Right here.
this
I mean, I'm just
complex.
trying to think outside the box, you
Yeah.
know, and when maybe we build another facility on the north end over there and then, you know, give that area small. I'm just saying, let's think, you know, brainstorm, because we don't ever get to talk. So,
Well, it will be interesting to see what that small area planning comes up
Yeah,
with, what the
uh,
options might be.
yeah,
Right.
because there's
just
gonna be
different
public
places.
input.
It'll be too
Right.
late for this county's.
Yeah,
timeline.
Yeah.
that's kind of that's what Pete's getting at is
Yeah,
that we're,
now that's gonna happen for 3 to 5 years, but we gotta decide now, you know, I think it's just a little rush for our timeline.
I would
That's-
agree. And it also, I mean, I hope it doesn't turn out like this, but it feels like it could potentially go the way of like almost kind of strong arming us, into making a decision about something when our community, we're here to make decisions for our community and what's best for our community. But we can't do that without their input, especially on that particular property. It's just been years and years that folks have been waiting for something to happen there. And now we're finally at a spot where we're going to have a really robust community engagement process around it. So I'm just, I don't know. It would feel like we were doing a disservice to our community by making a decision without engaging them first.
Sure. Well, I mean, but there's also the other things, logistics and, of how long are the bus routes? How long are the getting to the school? What are those routes look like?
Mhm.
There's, population and the densities thereof and what's it close to and et cetera, et cetera. So, I know there's a lot of variables in there besides just what the community wants, what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it might be less than ideal on all standards, but I'm just seeing if there was any other appetite out there for any other, besides just keeping, because I really do think we need a elementary school here.
Well,
We got our middle school, we got our our high school. We need somebody to say, well, where'd you go? Well, I went here and then I went to Red Bank, come on, I went to Hickson from K-12, or from 1 to 12, had the same kids in class.
It's really, I mean, like to the point that, who brought this up? Was it Commissioner Graham about property values? I think I can't
Was it
remember.
him or Warren Mackey or?
Well, no,
Once it
it was
spoke
not
up.
him. He said something else at the end, but I can't remember. It was somebody on this side of
Yeah.
the dais. But anyway, I think it was Commissioner Graham was talking about property values.
Mhm.
And Commissioner Sharp also like kind of piggybacked on that and was talking about how, people literally choose to move to a
Mhm.
community because, oh, I want to move here because I want to go to the school that's in this community, the
Mhm.
elementary school. I want my kids to go there. And that's how they choose, their home. That's how I personally chose my home here in Red Bank because it was zoned for Alpine Crest. And so that was really important to me, and it is important to a lot of people, and it's important to property values as well.
Sure.
And so that's something that, that Commissioner Sharp definitely talked about. I think Commissioner Graham started out talking about it. But what that looks like if we remove an elementary school from our community, what does that mean for our residents and their property values? I mean, that's something also to think about.
Sure. Well, and there's a lot of weight to be done.
The school board had approved $1.7 million for a gymnasium to be built at Rivermont.
Right.
And then the county commission pulled it because the anticipation of closing Rivermont.
Right.
So 1.7 goes somewhere.
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it was 1.5, I think was what was allocated from the American Rescue Plan funds. It's just frozen. They froze it temporarily until January, and then they'll figure out how to move forward after that. But so there's some
was
funds
interesting.
there that they don't really know how they may or may not be allocated in the next few months.
For my part, I'd be happy to have a discussion about any parcel in Red Bank for purposes of keeping an elementary school here. But White Oak does seem the obvious choice between the fact that the county owns it, the size, the location, its proximity to multiple City of Red Bank parks that currently aren't very well connected to that site. But I think it would also make sense for the city to, formally commit to making those connections so that the school could utilize those sites easily, readily, safely, and any other possible incentive that we could give to the county to consider their own site that's good location, ample space,
Mhm.
Quiet, neighborhood, safe, not, not right on Dayton Boulevard. We'll be
Right.
having young kids, close to traffic.
Right.
And yes, Mr. Granum.
Because it was never an elementary school. It was always a junior high or a high school
Right.
there.
Yeah.
That's
So
Older,
that's
older
something
kids.
that I hadn't actually,
Right.
okay, thank
Yeah.
you.
I was just gonna say another attribute of the White Oak Elementary School, former White Oak Elementary School, is it's in the Rivermont attendance area. So
It's in the zone
it's
for
in the
Rivermont.
zone that we're talking
Yep.
about. And, that was one of the things, the vehicle access is really ideal. On Altamont, right, as it comes into Memorial, so
And
Altamont feeds right back into the core.
Yep.
Of the Rivermont attendance area, and Memorial and Dayton goes north right up into the attendance area of Alpine Crest, so it would seem to be ideal.
It's also next door to the largest apartment complex in the city.
Well, I don't know if it's is it the largest? Larger than that one that's down in Southford, I think.
It's pretty
The
big.
one next to White Oak Elementary is the biggest one that I'm aware of.
Okay, well, that, to your point, I was actually about to say that.
Mhm.
I brought that up with one of the school board members that I talked with, and mentioned that, hey, if we have a lot of families that live in this apartment complex that would be zoned for this school that literally can walk right across basically a one lane road to get to school, which would reduce traffic congestion for car riders or bus rider needs. And so I think that was something that was hopefully information that was helpful for them as they move forward to make that decision. But, I'm hoping to share that in an ongoing manner with the other school board members as I'm connected with them, and hopefully as Jamie is able to chat with them as well.
Mr. Granum?
Thank you, Mayor. There's one more attribute I think that seems to be important to me, but I just wanted to voice to it that if you combine Rivermont and Alpine Crest at the White Oak footprint, they matriculate as a cohort into Red Bank Middle and Red Bank High School.
Right.
Any combination of Rivermont, Alpine Crest, and DuPont, then when those elementary school kids move to middle school, you break that cohort up. A third of it would go to Hickson, and 2/3 would come back into Red Bank. And I just don't think that's ideal. I think it's ideal that the friendships and the connections that are made at the elementary school have an opportunity to matriculate together into the middle and high school. And that's an attribute that is there if you combine just Alpine Crest and Rivermont, because they're both in the Red Bank Middle and Red Bank High School feeder pattern. The other thing that I wanted to mention is just commend Commissioner Jamie Fairbanks Harvey and Vice Mayor Stephanie Bellman, because they're really doing hard work on behalf of the city of Red Bank. They're meeting individually with the school board members and having conversations. And honestly, they're doing the school board members a real favor by getting out in a safe space, walking the turf, having a one-on-one conversation about this issue. It's really healthy for everybody. I really commend R2 for going out there on behalf of the city
Thank
and really doing this great work. So thank you very much.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Thank you both. As if middle school wasn't tough enough without having to have a 1/3 chance of whatever friends you've made being sent somewhere else.
It's true.
So are we,
Very true.
just to come up with some kind of consensus here, because I just wanted to throw out some
Mhm.
options over there, but are we hanging our hat on the White Oak spot? I mean, is that what I'm kind of hearing as a consensus here? It's okay. I mean, I'm not making judgment, but,
That one makes the most logistical sense. I mean,
all right.
pragmatically speaking, but I would think the preference would be for Alpine Crest to stay open. So
Well, sure. Yes, absolutely. That is 100%
All
the
the schools, I
preference.
was at a table
But-
with
but-
Dixon
but-
people, and they want their school to stay there
Yeah.
because it is a neighborhood
Yeah.
school.
Yeah,
It's hurtful.
it's sad. It's sad for these students because it feels like an extension of their family in these smaller schools. But I mean, I think you can maintain that, on that
Yeah,
property. And then I think we put that in our resolution that that's the preferred,
Right, right.
option. If you know, it's determined that consolidation must happen. But, you know, we also had talked about, you know, we want Alpine Crest property, the Alpine Crest property to be used for the public indefinitely, no matter what happens, you know, as a school or for the community. And that, you know, we would have a serious conversation with the school district about, you know, what that would look like if we, you know, needed to do an appraisal, pay fair market value for that or something like that. That's of course something we would all have to
Sure.
talk about and discuss together. But that was something that we had brought up in conversation, and not just expecting, hey, just hand it over to us just because you should. It's the right thing to do, you know. So
Well, I'll start there.
so I mean, I think I don't know. I think
Do you think a purchase offer would help incentivize
I
the plan that we're hoping for in any way?
I don't know. It's a big picture.
Yeah.
I think the
But I
city
think
should
our
be,
resolution-
should have skin in the game, and there's things that we do as a city, we build roads, we build sideways, we build and operate parks, and we should be, you know, have a thriving partnership with our sisters and brothers in the school district, particularly along the lines that we already are in that business. So I've come to realize in this conversation that other cities around Hamilton County actually do more. Some don't do anything, some do quite a bit. And so we can have that conversation with the school district. What would be helpful to them? What do they need us as a city to do as a partner on this elementary school? And I do have experience where one public agency is divesting of a building or a property, and another public agency is interested in it. In the process I've experienced is both agencies go do an independent appraisal, and then they have a conversation, and oftentimes they wind up splitting the difference. And then it's a purchase transaction. And so that would seem to be very fair, just as one possibility.
Would another resolution be in order to formalize any of this discussion about the purchase of the property or the city's commitment to, you know, providing infrastructure for any elementary school site selected in the city limits, that sort of a thing for a future meeting?
We certainly could do that. I think Vice Mayor Dalton and Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey can just feel free and continue to voice that in these one-on-ones. And then if it looks like that would be helpful, we can formalize it. But we can certainly do that anytime the commission wants.
Well, really, all I wanted to know is where do you need us? Because, I mean, you know, you don't want to go out and sell something you can't, you know, you write the check you can't cash, you know? So, you know, just what do you need from us to do? I mean, how do you need us to move forward? Did you gain a consensus up here to where that when you go talk to the school board, then you know what arrows are in your quiver?
We got it in the resolutions and then opportunities to talk one-on-one. And if they want to invite us back for clarification, either the school board or the county commission, then
When you have your one-on-ones, I assume, will you ask each member for suggestions of how the city could be better partners as well? Because they might have ideas that we haven't thought of yet.
Yeah.
yes, we'll definitely do that. I'm meeting with another one later this week and I think another one next week. But yeah, kind of the timeline is short, as we
Mhm.
know. I mean, they're having community meetings until through the end of this month. So for me, I'm trying to hopefully, you know, at least have a phone call with each of them, if they're not able to meet in person, in the next couple of weeks. And then, you know, hopefully we'll have, I don't know if we want to talk more at the November meeting, if we have any other further information to
thanks.
share potentially. And by then, all the community meetings have been done, and so we'll know maybe when they're planning to schedule their, like, the school board's facilities committee meeting, because right now they don't have a scheduled date for that. So,
Okay.
I mean, I don't know if for me, I mean, I think the thing that I saw maybe a head nod out here, but for me, what we've been talking about and what I have talked about up here, and that's really important to me, is not making a decision on the middle school property without engaging the public. And so I guess if you all hear, other comments from folks or neighbors or friends in the community that feel the same way or feel differently, or say what you're saying, hey, we got to keep a school here, whatever cost, just get rid of it all.
I just said, I said, at what? I didn't say, no, whatever it goes. I said, what cost are we willing to go to? So I mean, that, because I'm not fired up about that at all, because I mean, that's a very valuable piece of property. We'd be giving up a lot. And in fact, I would be taking away. But we'd be giving up so much. They'd have to be something that you're going to have to sweeten our deal, all right? Because that's too valuable a piece of property. And it's limited on its acreage. So I'm just saying, it was just like, what would the deal look like? Well, I mean, where's the thing? And it sounds like it's kind of really looping down to either keep it, but if we can't keep it, let's put it at White Oak. And if it was me, I wouldn't dilute the conversation. That if you're going to close it, then this is where we want to be, and instead of trying to fight for, the lost soldier. I'm sorry, you know what I'm saying. But if we're going to focus, let's focus on it, and then have a unified message and come to them and say this is what we're kind of wanting to do and have our thing. That's my opinion on that.
Yes.
Well,
Thank
you
for that.
I mean, it's at whatever. I mean, are we willing to give up our city hall and put it right here for, I mean, what would we do? I mean, it's just, are there other properties available or around or whatever? I mean, but I just want to make sure that we're looking around or focus in and say, okay, this is where we're going. If all else fails, the only site that I see as a commission is X, then we need to make that decision. And then go as a unified message, go towards that. Now, I'm just one guy. So I'm not pulling no weight.
That's in the resolution.
Okay.
Also, that's why we
Right.
placed it there specifically
Right.
to.
I think
Bring
the
that
the
forward.
only thing that wasn't in there to what, Mr. Granum, you and I talked about, Jamie, was that it's not specific to those two schools, like in the conversation now for us. And from what I'm, like I said, based on the numbers that Dr. Robertson presented at that meeting, you can't have a conversation about consolidating 3 schools. You have to have a conversation about consolidating 2 at the most, with the current populations of those schools to be in that range. So that's the only kind of additional detail. I think it's not in the resolution per se. We don't say that we would prefer a consolidation of Alpine Crest and Rivermont student bodies, into one new facility. But I don't know if that's.
No, it does state that Rivermont is a stellar school. STEM, it does
STEM
mention
school, yeah.
Rivermont, and then it does mention Alpine Crest, and it does mention White Oak property
Yes,
in
that's right.
those, at least 3
In different
separate
sections, yeah.
statements, yeah.
That's right.
Well, this is definitely the most important conversation happening in our community right now.
For sure.
But we do have some more agenda items to get to. Is there anything else needed from staff to continue this? Okay. Is there anything else that the committee needs from us as a board? Commissioner Wilkinson, do you have anything you'd like to add?
No, pretty well covered.
Maybe if you all have conversation, if you just happen in passing to have conversations with anyone,
Yeah.
relevant to this, if you want to just share that with us. If you hear another idea from somebody and you're like, oh, hey, Stephanie and Jamie should be talking about this with the school board members, then,
Give me a call.
yeah.
Excellent.
Just send us an email or something and let us know. That's all I would ask.
Thank you again for taking on this important task.
Thank
Glad to
you.
do it.
All right, the next item on our agenda is present business plans to commission. Mr. Granum.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners. I'll ask Fire Chief Fred Sauter to come up. In the coming next several commission meetings, work sessions, you'll hear from each of the department directors, and Chief is first up. So over to you, Chief.
Evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Meeting.
Good evening.
For fiscal year '24, we had several staff goals and milestones for the fire department. So our first biggest goal was staffing. And as you know, this year's budget, we budgeted, asked for an approved budget for, hours to be able to go with 5 full-time firefighters around the clock, or 5 firefighters around the clock, full-time, 24 hours a day. That gets us to 5 of our future goal of 7 per shift. We accomplished that on July the 1st when we started filling that night shift, Station 1.
All right.
We completed that goal July 1. We started filling the shift with part-timers. Our next goal is facilities and training. So in facilities, we worked with the facilities manager and identified some needs at Station 2 with the building. So to date, all 4 bathrooms have been completely remodeled, new floors, new fixtures, paint. The 2 bathrooms up front that are the ones open to the public are now ADA accessible. So all the extra stuff that made them non-ADA accessible are taken out. And so the bathroom upgrades have been completed, and the bay wall that is the south bay wall that looks hideous is scheduled to be start the work. The work on that is to start October the 30th. So we are trucking towards completion on that. Our next one is our training, and that's been a multi-year goal. So the goal for fiscal year 23 was the fire training instructor. For 24, it was the continued training, improving our training. We actually rebranded his position to add the word captain to his position. Hopefully in November, with some other rebranding with the fire department and reorganization, we will make those changes to their position and ranks and actually bring them all before you with their promotions. So with that, that's a continual push forward. So in more training, of course, we got a $50,000 prop approved in the budget. So as you know, we brought that before the commission in August. So that actually is on order, and they told us 4 to 6 months, maybe 7 months. So once it gets here, we'll crane at Station 2 to unload it and set it on its wheels so we can roll it around up there. So
Maybe a future show and tell.
yes, definitely a future show and tell. But it's not easily movable because it has to be moved by tractor and trailer. So once it's here, it'll stay at Station 2. Our next goal was our protective firefighter clothing, second set of turnout gear for all our firefighters. We're currently in the phase of pricing. So we've done our specifications. We've made sure that those are what we need. We've kind of changed it up a little bit. Newer materials out there, newer designs based on what's come out in the last few years versus what we've been buying. So we changed our spec a little bit, had to go through a review with the company that builds that turnout gear. So now we're waiting on pricing and the contracts and everything. And I'm hoping to bring a purchase order to y'all for approval at the next commission, or the November 7th commission meeting. So that one's a slow process, but we're getting there. The bad thing is once the award for the purchase is done, then we're still got about a 6-month time on the turnout gear. So unfortunately, everybody's buying it. So that's the issue with that.
Or fortunately, depending on how you look at it.
Yes. Our next biggest one was our computer technology upgrade. That one is in a state of waiting on the computer software to be downloaded. The computers were here, they were here pretty quick. It's a matter of getting the software downloaded in them, making sure they work. And then once we get that done, then we'll start the conversion of changing out the computer mounts in the fire truck. We've got to change those out. Those are here also. So it's a matter of just making some changes with mounts and everything, putting the computers in and change it over to the new system and keep going. So I'm hoping that that's going to be done in about the next 30 days. And then in our equipment goals, we've started the process of replacing a lot of old fire hose. And we actually had a section of hose bust yesterday on fire. And I know it's older than 20 years old. So I'm hoping to bring a purchase or request before y'all on November the 7th for that. And it's right at a lot of money. The fire hose has gone up considerably in the last few years. The last time we bought fire hose, I don't remember it being that much. So It's gone up a lot, and I think a lot of it has to do with COVID. So with our big goals, that's where we stand in the fire department. Most of them are complete, or it's close to being complete.
Excellent.
We budgeted for you to purchase new hoses, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So is
That's
it-
our operating budget?
Is it,
Yeah.
is the estimate kind of beyond that?
No, I
Oh,
actually hit
okay.
the number right on the mark. On the number. I
Good
hit the
job.
number on the- I hit that number. I was
Great.
surprised.
Sounds like your 3 minutes are up. Sorry.
It's all right.
Okay, great. Thank
So
you.
the computers, the tailored prop, and the turnout gear will all be rolled up into the equipment loan that John Alexander, our finance director, will take out and reimburse the city for those costs. Once we get those costs, and he knows exactly how much we spent.
So we're gonna have most of this on the ground before next budget
Yes,
season.
ma'am.
Excellent. Good to
Great.
hear. Thank you very much,
Thank
Chief.
you.
Good work.
All right, we are running out of time, so if it's all right with everybody, we will table the remaining items. Well, we want to do
6
citizen
minutes.
comments.
Right.
And a break. You want to do a few more items first?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, it's up to everyone else. I
Cause
was
we'll-
thinking if we tabled one, we could table the next item because Ms. Sheldon, you are presenting during the regular meeting, isn't that correct?
Yep.
Okay.
So we could table the next item, then we have the festival advisory board. We can cover in the regular meeting.
Okay.
ADA sidewalk upgrade, your board hearings. Yeah, all the following items will be covered in the 6 o'clock meeting,
At that meeting.
if that's all right with everybody. If so, then we will, get to the citizen comments for items on this work session agenda. Mr. Granum?
Thank you, Mayor. This is the time for public comments. Please observe these rules for public comments. Comments are limited to 2 minutes or less in the work session, and the city recorder will operate the timer visible on the dais. Please respect her direction and conclude any comments as time expires. All public comments should be addressed to the board as a whole and not to a particular commissioner, city staff, or the audience. The commission is here to listen. Please do not expect a reply during public comment. More citizen comment time is available at the end of our regular scheduling session immediately following this. At this time, citizens are invited to the podium to comment. Please begin by stating your name and address.
All right. If there's no one that would like to comment,
May I
go ahead, Vice Mayor.
ask a question? We have school board member Ben Connor here and County Commissioner Sharp, who walked in a little late, I think. I think maybe intended to be here for our school facility conversation, but I just wanted to acknowledge them being here, and I don't know if we wanted to, if there was anybody who had questions of them while they're here, if we wanted to ask them that, if we wanted to allow for that.
Ben, would you like to say anything
Yeah,
since you're here?
I echo what Vice Mayor Stephanie Dalton said. I just wanted to be present. Please forgive my tardiness, children things. And
You got a mess of them.
plus one. There's a cousin in town.
Oh, yeah, yeah. You got a mess
Six
of
with the dog. So,
Well, thank you for
yes.
being here.
So I'm here, if there was a question that you felt like didn't get answered in your conversation that you wanted to pose to me, I would gladly field it.
Well, since you're here, part of the discussion that we had would be how the city could partner better with the county in order to incentivize keeping an elementary school somewhere in the city limits.
So I think to answer that, they're starting out great. Ms. Fairbanks Harvey has already reached out to me to set up a meeting so we can have further conversations as elected officials about what the hopes and desires of her constituents here in Red Bank and mine as in District 6 as a whole are. I'm very much looking forward to the roll-up of all the information. Obviously, we had breakout sessions. We had the Red Bank Middle School meeting talking about this possible, what you guys were talking about, the possible consolidation of schools. And when we did the breakout, I tried to get around to a bunch of tables, but obviously you can't be in 5 different places at once. So I'm very much looking forward to that roll-up. I think that in and of itself will be a really big hurdle. It'll be really good for your, forgive me, I don't know what the name of the working group is, but for the two of you
Commissioners.
for you all to hear about, and for me, hopefully to come back after that's been rolled up and be here to answer more questions. I think I think talking about it is the biggest thing and continued.
So are you talking about the notes that were taken at those breakout sessions that all of the school board members are gonna get that information? Okay,
Yes, and so to be very clear, so that everybody knows what happened, at each one of those breakout sessions, there was somebody transcribing all of the questions, comments, and answers. There weren't really answers per se given. If someone had a direct question, it was answered, but in the idea of what the proposal was, again, the mayor's proposal with the working group, we were asking questions and people in the community were responding to them, not board members, not Hamilton County staff, just the citizens were asking and answering questions about what they would like to see
Mhm.
in their school system.
I was
Okay.
at a table with Hickson
Yes.
teachers and parents and children, and there was one Rivermont representative. So they were giving it, responding. Yeah.
You're absolutely right. There were so many different walks of people there. It was
Mhm.
great to get that
That's
information. So that's why I just repeat again, I'm looking forward to seeing it. I have not been privy to it yet. I'm here instead of being at one at East Brainerd. So they're all over. So I'm looking forward to hearing all the information.
are you expecting to get that information like at the end of the month after all the community meetings have been conducted?
I am expecting that, and I want to be very clear on that word. I'm expecting it. I have not been told a date that it will be delivered to me, but I am expecting that it should be rolled up after all of them have been completed.
Okay,
I would assume that it's going to be one large document instead of like rolling from what
piece
they've
by
done.
piece. Yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Phillips, did you have a question?
Well, how far along the process are we down? Is it coming down to December? We're making a decision? I mean, really?
Let's see, how do
I mean,
Here's how it has been showcased in each one of these meetings. It has
Okay.
been showcased with a timeline that says all the information should be rolled up by December and
Mhm.
presented to the board in December or January with a hopeful vote in February.
to your board.
Yes, sir. That is what, and should be, yes, ma'am, school board, and should be given to David and the other commissioners, February, March. Again, that is the timeline that has been shown.
Right,
We all know that there's typical hiccups.
Okay. Then it's kind of like, and this is our intent, and then we'll find out where we're going to put it, or is it, okay, here's the sites and here's where we're going to go?
So to answer that's also twofold. And the problem with it is if it's a site that's in the hands of Hamilton County school system and we said, we're gonna build a school there, then yes, we could vote and do it and whatever. If it was a situation where we needed to partner with, say, Red Bank City,
Right.
To swap land or figure something out in that manner, then obviously we would need to come to this body and,
Right.
and work through it, which would only add steps to the process.
Sure.
So,
Well,
I walked in at enough time to hear you guys talking a little bit about the former Red Bank Middle, the park property, I believe. Was that what
From a
the
Red Bank
last
Middle
thing?
School site.
Yes. So if that was an option, if that was something that both bodies decided they wanted to go to, obviously the school board would need to vote on something that they would bring to you all. I would assume I would do that also, and bring it to present to you all for some sort of trade swap, buying, whatever the board as a whole decides, and then presents to this commission. Again, if that were to happen, nothing is said right now.
Right.
We're still listening.
The meat of our discussion on that property, before you were able to join us, was that we have just issued the RFP on a comprehensive plan for the city of Red Bank, and part of that is to include a small area plan for that site specifically. And this has been a promise that has been made to our community for years now, that we will give them the opportunity to provide feedback on what they want to happen on their land, on those 12 acres. And I'm in no way opposed to putting a school on the menu of options for people to select from on this upcoming comprehensive plan, with, thorough public input opportunities. But the county's timeline is not conducive with the city's timeline, because that we would have to make a decision with the timeline currently being presented to us by the county before we had the opportunity to collect public input. And it sounds like this commission is not comfortable with that. If it would be possible.
she said what I said, just a lot better. If I may. Go ahead, Mayor.
If it would be possible for the county to delay a decision on Red Bank schools in order for us to have the opportunity to gather input on this property first. I personally, I would be very open to that, but it sounds like what I've heard so far, that the timeline is not very flexible.
Well, and I don't want to say that. I want to be very clear that the timeline has been presented, but it's not set. It's not something that has to be followed. And the second part, to answer the question that you posed, both of you, is that obviously we couldn't move forward until this body voted. If that would, again, if this one line of conversation happens, the school board couldn't proceed. If we don't own that land, we couldn't arbitrarily decide to do anything with it. We could present something to this body, and then you all could take as long as you needed to, or as long as the proposal allowed to take on the question.
It sounds like from our discussion so far that the bottom line is that if this county is interested in that property, they would have to postpone a decision in order for us to complete our comprehensive plan prior to us making a decision on that property.
/ small area study. That's gonna be
And the small area
the
study.
second piece to that.
Yeah.
Which
But
is
we-
moving along at a rapid pace according to government. And I mean that, really. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's moving along at a rapid pace, but it just takes time to get it down the
is.
pipe.
We just budgeted for it,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
the RFP's out now, and the RFP
Yeah.
closes at the end of this month, and we
Yeah.
hope
We
to
have
have
our
a decision
selection
made
in
by
November the
November.
8th,
So
You know,
I see no holes in your
Yeah.
logic. That is, I don't understand any other way that specific plan could move forward without obviously the blessing and the vote.
And one of my other things, and if not there, where kind of thing, where else could we put together? How many acres do you need? I mean, there would be things like that, but I would like us to be a partner. To me, it's the White Oak right up there. That just makes sense to me, but I don't know all of the factors and the ins and outs,
Part of the things that I've been privy to so far in the conversation lines have been talking about the zoning. And from what I've seen, if this went forward, it would be a really better option to be there. Now, the only thing I would say is not even a warning or whatever, I just want to say it out loud, is I would make sure that in your study that you move at the pace that's best for the people. Because I would hate for us to slow down and lose the better option. If this is the proposal, and this is the best thing for Red Bank, I hope that we get to move on it instead of dragging our feet and losing out on the best option.
Just wanted to note that we had a meeting, Commissioner Fairbanks Harvey and I, Mr. Granum and I earlier yesterday.
Mhm.
Earlier yesterday.
The last 2 Mondays.
That is earlier than now.
And we looked at the current school zones, and Rivermont is actually in the school zone area where the former White Oak Elementary site is right now. So the change would have to be would be pulling in the Alpine Crest students. And one thing that I had brought up with one of your colleagues, which I can discuss because we're in a public meeting, was, even potentially if you have to look at, you're gonna have to look at rezoning, I think, kind of generally speaking anyway, with some of these changes that are happening across the district. But even, do you need to pull in some families or households that are zoned for Red Bank Elementary into this, into this hypothetical new facility at the former White Oak Elementary site to offset some of the new construction that is zoned for Red Bank Elementary that I think is going to push them up to the upper end of their capacity anyway. So I think it just could be a natural fit, in that way. But I know that there's all kinds of, Commissioner Phillips said, all kinds of other factors that, we don't know about with school zoning and all of that. So just wanted to put that out there, though.
And you're dealing with Normal Park too. It's
Yeah.
Right.
just around the corner.
That's right.
It does come very close, but the lines are drawn oddly there. That's Dallas Road, and then but all of those homes that we're talking about in that area are currently zoned for mostly Red Bank Elementary. The Rivermont current, if I'm not mistaken, borders, but does not include where White Oak used to be.
White Oak is in Rivermont.
It is in Rivermont?
It
Okay,
is.
I'm looking at the lines wrong then. Okay.
So
I think our whole consensus is we want an elementary school. in
That's
the
right.
town. All right,
Exactly.
now, I mean, the bottom line.
And that's
You
the
know.
other thing that I want us to make sure that everybody, again, all of this is proposal at this point. So I want to be very clear.
Mhm.
We're talking about hypotheticals. So if this specific hypothetical happens, I just want to make sure that we get it right. That Red Bank retains an elementary school as the resolution states, and that I agree with. And that it's in the best place possible. That's where I'll leave it, is I want to make sure we've got an elementary school. I want to make sure it's in the best place possible.
And that we can still elect the folks that represent us.
And the city's current opinion is that the White Oak site is the best location. And anything that the city can do to
Yes.
partner, substantially to incentivize that site, whether it be building sidewalks, bike lanes, better crosswalks, connections to the multiple city parks that are already
Site
nearby.
preparation, demolition.
Thank you
Yeah.
for circling back to that.
Yes, please, whatever the city can do to encourage the county to consider the White Oak site.
Within reason.
We would be happy to discuss any partnership on that site.
Absolutely. And that, to be very clear, that's why I'm here. This works as a partnership, and I want to answer the questions and make sure, again, that we get what's right for Red Bank.
And I
District
I
6.
think we traditionally haven't, we as a body have not invested in our schools. And we are saying
We're ready to
that
change
that's
that.
important to us. Especially in light of this conversation, but moving forward as well.
Heard, acknowledged, and I will take it to the board. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Representative Connor.
Thank
We
you for
appreciate
being
you
here.
Joining us today, especially given the chaos at home. Commissioner
It's
Sharp,
just
thank
normal.
you as well for
Yes.
joining us today for
Thank
this
you.
conversation.
Scout camp.
We are out of time for our work session, so we will adjourn briefly for a restroom break and reconvene in a few minutes for our regular meeting.